My name is Desmond. I want to explain. I cannot explain how I was able to survive my childhood because I've been suffering from Marfan syndrome. Marfan syndrome is a genetic tissue disorder affecting the majority of the body. I have been diagnosed with this genetic disorder of the connective tissue that causes defects in my heart valves and aorta. I cannot specifically explain why I had to be the one inflicted with this kind of illness. But now when I think about it, I feel God was actually trying to teach me a vital lesson. I know this because many people could not survive illness that was half as critical as the one I experienced. Then I was thinking that the doctors and treatments I was receiving was what had been preserving me, but now I know better. I continued battling with my health up until I was 15 years old. Then I yet again suffered from a very weak tissue that connected the lens to my eyes and resulted in a disorder of my vision in which I see a single object as two. I feared I was going to be blind, but then God helped me again because I had two reconnective procedures involving major incisions to remove, repair, and also possibly replace the part of the tissue that had been previously severed. After the surgery, I was then able to have 20 half-two-way vision because previously I have 23 free 124. Miraculously, with just two reconnective surgeries, I was able to have my eyesight restored. Then surprisingly, in the year 2014, I again suffered from severe asthma, and that made me always take an inhaler wherever I go to. When I started having symptoms like wheezing, shortness of breath, chest tightness, and coughing, I thought it was due to the illness I had been going through, only for me to be told that I was suffering from a long-term respiratory condition in which my airways may unexpectedly and suddenly narrow off in response to cold air or even emotional stress. Coupled with this, I've also been battling with inflammation of my aorta. That is the great artery that carries blood from my heart to all parts of my body except my lungs. That was why I had previously had an aortic valves replacement surgery. I could not stop thinking of what had caused enlargement of the seminal valve of my heart. Just before this surgery, in 2013, I went in for electrocardiogram to check if my aorta had grown any. My cardiologist broke the sad news to me that I would need to undergo an aortic valve replacement surgery because it had grown since the last test. While he was telling me, I sighed dejectedly because I felt I would soon be going through the painful experience of another surgery. Back then, I was not even thinking of the risk this particular surgery could cost me. When I was approaching the day of my surgery, I was admitted to the hospital so that the doctors could stabilize me and also prepare me for the surgery. A day to the scheduled day of my surgery, a very beautiful, nice and caring lady visited me. She chatted with me as though we had been longtime friends. She was so nice to me that I wondered if she was actually human, or maybe she was an angel in human form. Before she left, she asked me if I wanted anything or maybe if there was any special activity I would like to engage in before my surgery. I was surprised. Why would this nice lady want to help a dying boy like me? Actually, it was a muse. So I laughed her off and told her no, claiming I was comfortable the way I was, and I was content to just lay down and await the day of my surgery. I did not even know that even the social workers had already given up on my survival, and they were thinking I would never be able to survive the surgery. They were thinking I would die during the operation, so they wanted to make my last moment on earth pleasurable. Yet I was lying there on my bed thinking that Mother Nature was smiling at me and sending people to come and comfort me. I just thought luck was shining brightly on me. Prior to the morning of the surgery, I had not been scared because I had already gone through numerous operations. But on the morning of my surgery, I became extremely petrified. I just don't know why, but I started thinking that maybe this was the end of the road for me. Of course, I ought to have felt that way because most of the tissues and even organs in my system have gone due to the numerous medical procedures that have been carried out on my body. Before now, I have been practically living on drugs. I am certain that I could not survive a single day without taking pills. I was just an embodiment of diseases and drugs. I started watching TV so as to comfort myself as the appointed time was dragging closer. I couldn't help but feel apprehensive, and I just suddenly wished I could do something that would make time stop ticking. I suddenly wished I had some mystic powers with which I could backward time or probably slow the rate at which time was moving, but since I could do nothing to stop time, the time for my surgery eventually came. I was wheeled into the surgery room to be given a dose of anesthesia, which was used to eliminate pains without causing loss of vital functions first. Then I had already said goodbye to my family. Even now when I remember that day, I always feel so sad. I knew my family loved me so much. although I was the one going through all the surgery. I knew my family were also suffering with me because of the emotional trauma they were experiencing, even if I didn't know anything. I know my family loved me dearly and wished me well from the depths of their heart. Maybe the anesthesia also made me unconscious because I suddenly jerked up, struggling to breathe during the operation. Later, I was told by the doctors that I had mysteriously suffered an asthma attack during my surgery. The surgeon was probably not aware this was a possibility, so while they were struggling to grab a ventilator to probably circulate fresh air into my system and also expel noxious and stale air from my system, I suffocated and died for a while. In my moment of asphyxiation, I began to feel at peace, and I then realized that I was dying. So this is it. Almost immediately I saw myself on the operating table. I saw my mother crying and I shouted, "I love you," but she couldn't hear me. I tried talking to her. I even attempted to wipe her tear, but no, she couldn't hear or see me. I saw doctors and surgeons turning to and fro, panicking and trying to set up the ventilator. And I saw my loved ones anxiously waiting the reception. The surgeon then confirmed post-recovery they were undergoing. My mother could not stop crying, and my family in the waiting room was getting apprehensive by the minute. Suddenly I found myself in a place that was deprived of light. The place has no glimpse of light. In my own words, I call it the dark place. I had no emotions or feeling while I was in the dark place, yet I was experiencing sensation, thoughts and feelings that I could not explain. I was able to consciously perceive through the use of my sense faculties. I lost myself, all my realities, and I felt like my thoughts and all my feelings, even my memories and experiences, had been drowned in an ocean. Then out of nowhere, instantly a very loud voice spoke to me. I knew it was a male voice. Although I saw no one, but I heard the voice loudly and clearly said God. I was immediately revived and placed into a medically induced coma. I remained a comatose patient for about 14 days. The first words I uttered when I opened my eyes was, "I heard God," but sincerely speaking, I do not remember when I said those words. I spent several months out of school experiencing the aftermath of a surgery and also healing from the surgery. I could not use my legs for a month, and I had to live with a huge, scary, and ugly scar on my chest. Reflection. I was an anti-theist from my early childhood up until I became 15. I just did not like the concept of a Christian God. In fact, I choose not to believe that such a person as God existed. But after my ND experience, I can boldly and confidently say I believe in God. I know that God exists and that He is gracious and merciful. I know my very existence is due to His magnanimous love. No wonder how I've been able to overcome all of this near-death experience. The Bible pointedly stated that God has a loud and clear voice. God said God to me as His own name. Now, when I think about it, I now realize that the dark place I found myself was Sheol, which is definitely not heaven or hell. It is simply the grave, the place of the temporary dead, the place described in the Bible as darkness. I somehow believe that since I did not stay dead, and because my sins were not reconciled, I could not enter into His holy presence. I sincerely wished I had the opportunity to enter into His presence. Words cannot genuinely convey my unexplainable joy of knowing that God exists now. I have fully realized that the life I have been living was a lie. All this while I have been deceiving myself, thinking that there is no God. I stand boldly without doubt to tell you that the lifelike and even naturalistic worldview is a big lie, as it is existentially pleasing. Our lives on earth are like a vapor of smoke. I assure you, it's not long. We are all fated to die. We will not and can never live forever. And once we die, every body will see God when we depart planet Earth. Ask yourself just this question: how prepared am I to see God? Sincerely speaking, it was until several months after my experience that I believed God existed. Even during my last trip to the surgery room, I didn't quite believe in the existence of God. I was just thinking that I've got skilled doctors, and so I had nothing to fear. That was why I turned on the TV while I needed to be comforted. If not because of the mercies of God, this would have been consumed. I should have been dead, buried, and probably forgotten. If you ask me why God helps me all this while, I would never be able to explain why God has been helping me, even when I did not believe in His existence. Maybe He just allowed me to go through all this ordeal, so I would stand in awe of His mightiness. If not, how well do you think you can explain how a 15-year-old boy would go through all these numerous surgeries without telling this world goodbye? I have no doubt that God saved me. I am alive today only because of God's grace. God is real, whether we like it or not. We will meet with God someday, and I hope we will be able to abide in His presence. Do not be deceived. God is real, and sooner than later, we will surrender to death and thus be forced to meet with God. Hope you are prepared to meet with God.